Did you know that one small change to how you format your podcast episodes can actually make a huge difference in how you reach your audience and how your audience responds to you? Today, I have on a very special guest, Kristy Ouellette, and Kristy has a podcast on travel. Her podcast is Talk Travel to Me, and she specializes in Mickey Guru Travel Company, where I am assuming you absolutely love Walt Disney World, Walt Disney, everything, correct?
Yeah, I'm definitely what you'd call a Disney adult. And that's where we started the agency with that in mind. Since then, I've expanded and I love all sorts of travel now that I've tried different things, but our roots are definitely securely with Mickey and Friends.
I do love Mickey and Friends myself. My very favorite is the Hollywood Tower Hotel.
Oh, yeah. That is an amazing ride. Love that.
I could go on that ride all day and not get bored.
Yep. Same.
All right. So we met at a local New England podcasters meetup last month, I believe it was. And we were kind of thrown into a group together. They do breakout sessions. And even though I was a rule breaker, I actually had a different color on my name tag, but there was only the two of you. And so I decided I'm going to join them because there was like 10 people in my group. So I'm glad I did because we had a nice conversation during this breakout, and I found some really interesting information about your podcast. So tell me one about your podcast and what you talk about on it now.
Sure. So Talk Travel to Me is actually the third podcast that I have had. And this one is mostly a solo venture, but then I invite travel agents that work for our travel agency, Mickey Guru Travel Company, to join me for certain episodes. And originally it was a long episode, like long form podcast that was going 45 minutes, sometimes even over an hour, and talking about a topic. And then I pivoted to making it a singular question that we discuss. As an example, today we recorded an episode about how to survive the summer heat in the theme parks. So that ended up being a good 22 minutes, I think, by the time we were done, just talking about that specifically. So people that are interested in that question could go right to that episode and give it a listen.
I love that. How'd you get into travel agency, being a travel agent?
So I am a master problem solver. And
Ooh.
I had spent 20 years working in the field of early education and care as a teacher, director, and then a state licensor. And one day my husband and I were looking at our vacation budget, and which I was always pushing the limits to. And he said, if we're going to keep this up, you've got to find out a way to get Mickey to pay you. And I had never thought about that ever. So my wheels started turning, and before I knew it, I owned my own travel agency and almost immediately ended up with 10 or 11 independent contractors under my umbrella. And in less than a year between our launch, I got to quit my job working for the state of New Hampshire. And that was 11 years ago now. So that was kind of a hard pivot, but it was necessary, I think.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about your podcast, but first I want to know how many times a year you go to Disney now.
This is always a question that kind of feels embarrassing when I'm talking to people outside of the industry, because in the industry, it's pretty typical and sometimes maybe even a little less. But I go to Walt Disney World in Florida 6 to 8 times a year, and then also do 4 to 5 Disney cruises a year. Disneyland in California, I get there about once. But then I also visit other things. I just got off a princess cruise recently. So I do a lot of travel, which I absolutely love.
Perk of the job, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a hazard, someone's going to do it.
And you know what? I fully support that because I have used a travel agent before and they know their stuff, right? You know what places to visit, what places not to visit, and you can give that really poignant information for everybody, which is Really important because otherwise we would just get to like, I don't know, Atlanta and be like, oh, what are we doing? I don't know.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
really want to work with a travel agent that travels.
Yeah.
And that has been a big perk. And, every time I travel, I end up getting more clients reaching out to book something either that I've done or it sparked something for them. So it works really nicely that way. But
Nice.
I can tell you, here is the difference between the Royal Caribbean cruise ship line here and a princess line. And like I can get into the nitty gritty so I can help you figure out what's best for you, which is without doing those things, you'd never be able to do that effectively.
Sure, sure. So you said you have, this is your third podcast.
Hmm.
What made you want to start a podcast? Have all three been on travel agencies?
They've all been travel related, yes.
Okay.
The first one had 4 hosts. They were all travel agents that worked for me. The second was actually myself, my husband, one of our agents, and her husband.
Okay.
And then when that sunsetted during COVID, because there wasn't a whole lot to talk about in the travel world in 2020. So when that sunsetted, I always love this medium. I like the creativity that it gives me. I'm someone that has a lot of opinions. And so a place that I can share those opinions and reach people that are interested is always a win for me. I'm creative in that way. I'm not a crafty person. Like I know you used to own a craft store. Like I wouldn't know what to do in a craft store, but in a podcast setting, I'm like, yeah, give me a mic and I'm just going to go. And so I decided that I wanted to do it again. And instead of having a permanent co-host, I was going to kind of do like depending on the topic, bringing in experts to talk about different things.
Yeah. It's your type of creativity. I
Yeah.
still consider podcasting to be creative because you have to come up with different topics. You have to come up with different spins of what you're going to do. You have to remember to add in the CTA, make sure they get the intro. Yeah, there's still some creativity to it. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then you get to play with it too. When it's your podcast, like I started out with a longer form and then I went, I'm even bored with this. So let's do a smaller, more succinct kind of thing. And then it allows you to play. And I like that aspect of podcasting.
Yeah. Yeah. So during the New England Podcasters meetup, we again were together and you told a very interesting story that I was so inspired by. And I think that other people need to hear this story. So I'm hoping that maybe you can share this with my audience today and maybe inspire some of them to make a few changes. And maybe they can call in an 80K client. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll say that the transition from the long form to the short form came for 2 major reasons. One of them being that I was having trouble keeping up with it. I was getting pod fade. I was just getting burnt out. I was like, I don't have an hour to just talk to people about things. I don't have that time in my day. The other piece, though, is I had my editor was my 23-year-old daughter. And as a Gen Z editing her mom's Gen X podcast, I was really cringy, according to her. And I will tell you, I'm sure I was. But I'm going to be 50 this month. And I was like, no, I embrace the cringe. I'm not worried about it like I was when I was in my 20s. Like, I'm me. Love me. Don't. That's fine. And so we were having kind of this rub. And I decided that, nope, I was doing my thing. And so I changed it up and decided my husband was going to become my editor because he clearly enjoys my cringe sometimes. But he was going to take over that role and I was going to just focus on one question. The challenge for me, though, was I didn't want it to be a strictly Disney travel podcast. I wanted to kind of create an environment where I was going to answer all sorts of travel questions. So we go kind of all around the world. But the first episode I did with a question, I got a response from a client that I had worked with years ago. And she said, I didn't realize you booked things like river cruises. I always think of you as my Disney girl. So we started having a conversation back and forth, and she was a regular Disney goer, but I ended up booking her on an $80,000 bucket list retirement trip for her and her extended family on an Ama Waterways river cruise in Europe. So truthfully, that was the first Ama cruise I'd actually booked. Some of my agents had before, but I never had someone come to me that was qualified for that. And she knew it. She was like, that looks amazing. And so just that first episode of a change brought that. Now, gratefully, she was already a client, but she didn't know. She hadn't got the rest of my messaging that said at Disney and beyond. Like, until she heard the episode, it didn't dawn on her. So it was a big win for me.
That is amazing. Congratulations. That is a big win. And we always want to hear about that because that is a direct relation to your podcast. People don't always think of that as they're like, well, I offer a CTA, or maybe they say, I'm not making any money from my podcast. But sometimes making money from your podcast is hidden like that, right?
Yeah. Well, and I will say, for years, I don't have ads. I don't have sponsored deals, things like that. So I was in that camp where I was like, I don't make any money from this. It's a creative habit kind of a thing, maybe a hobby. But that is absolutely true, that booking came directly because she saw me talk about it on social media and went, oh, I'll just listen. And she was on her way to the grocery store or TJ Maxx, I forget which. And she just heard it and was like, oh, I never knew. And meanwhile, like I said, I've worked with her for years, and I've said for years I do more than Disney. It didn't click. And then she was like, I know you, I trust you, here we go. And I've had a little success in that same vein with other podcasts. One of the first podcasts I did, I actually got a listener from New Zealand who was coming to the States to go to Walt Disney World, and she didn't want to plan her own trip because the time zones were so complicated. So she was like, I don't know how to make dining reservations and handle all of that when I'm on the other side of the world. So I got it that way. But it's definitely hidden ways of making money, at least for my podcast. I don't foresee, I know I watch some of the big podcasts and I think, I'm never going to get a Dunkin' Donuts sponsorship. It's just not going to happen for me. And that's okay. But being able to be heard by my ideal clients and give people helpful information is where that's at. And it comes around. So.
Yeah, it's that trust. You said it earlier. It's that trust of they already know you. And then sometimes they just need to be bonked on the head, right? I say that to people too. That's one of the reasons why I do suggest telling them in every episode to subscribe or to do something, because sometimes people don't, they need to hear it 1,000 times. And then they're like, oh, I didn't even realize that's what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when we were meeting at the New England Podcasters group, you had said something about the importance of repeating yourself and not to feel like you're being repetitive, but because when we listen to podcasts, we're doing other things. And so it's not really going to feel repetitive to your listener. It's going to feel like a reminder in some cases or brand new information. So
yeah, it is. It's so true. Brand new for the people that are new to the crowd, and for those people that have been super fans for a while. It's maybe just that reminder that they needed, which is what you did with your client.
Yeah.
So your normal call to action in your podcast, do you have one that you normally put in?
That's one of my struggle points at the moment. I have too many, I think. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out how to curb that a little bit. Because at the end, I always say like, hey, share this podcast with a friend. Drop me a review. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram too. Hey, send a text to the show. So I think I overwhelm that, and I need to spend some time figuring out how to balance the call to actions, because I don't get a tremendous amount of response typically from the episodes. I'll get a like here and there, but I'll say, hey, if you've got a question, ask me. I've gotten 2. That's it. So I think that's part of my problem. People are overwhelmed.
Yeah. Sometimes just the one call to action. I always suggest to my clients to send them to their newsletter, because then you can really nourish them from there. I sent out a newsletter just this past week, and I had over 22 responses, which for my size email list was actually 5% of my email list. So that was great for me.
That's great.
And I was able to respond to them and thank them for participating. It was just a little poll, but I think you might have participated.
I did. I was like, I don't normally respond to people's emails, but you said something like, real quick, just one number. Like I didn't need to give any more thought to it. I hit the number, hit send, and I was like, done. And because I do know how that matters to those of us putting out stuff there. Like it's so much helpful knowledge to know that someone's reading it and will give us just a number.
Yeah. And it's great for that email authority too. So It's a win-win for you, me, everyone involved, for sure. All right. So your call to action, you have different ones. So that really goes to show that the content within your podcast matters just as much, or maybe more than your CTA at the end, right? That's kind of what I'm getting from your new format and your newer podcast format, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
If you were to start doing this all over again, is that just the direction you would go? Or do you feel like there needed to be those original pieces there for people to kind of get that authority piece?
I feel like I probably would start with just the one question. I think that the other stuff was somewhat interesting, but I think it was too long. And I think my ideal listener is typically a busy person. So they're not like kicking back and listening to an hour-long episode. I think it's a easier way to do it if it's in smaller chunks. I did hear somebody tell me the other day that of the 13 shorter episodes, they've binged all of them. They just happened upon and binged it. And I walked around like on a cloud. I'm binge worthy? Like what? That's crazy to me. So
yeah,
love that feedback.
Yeah, that is a great feedback when you get that. And, that's kind of like a double piece there, right? So I love that you shortened your episodes. I try to keep mine pretty short as well, especially my solos. And then they get the opportunity to decide whether or not they want to go and move on. And then, that person's going to be a super fan. That person's probably going to pick up the phone next time they want a trip. They're going to pick up the phone, call you. So that's the beauty of that. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on here today. Is there any advice that you would love to give to anybody that is a podcaster, just starting podcasting, anything that you want to share, your words of wisdom from the years of podcasting you've done?
I think my biggest piece of advice is if you feel called to put together a podcast, do it. Don't feel like there's already too many voices out there. Don't feel like you don't have anything to add, because we all have a very individual stamp on what we're doing. So I feel like a lot of people will say to me like, oh, I'd love to do a podcast, but who needs another travel podcast? And I'm like, I love travel podcasts. I listen to a whole bunch of them. And I think the same with small business podcasts or podcasts about podcasting, right? Like there's a voice that your voice is needed. And so if you feel called to do it, jump in and do it. Don't wait.
That's excellent advice. Same advice I would offer as well, because your voice matters and what you have to say, your stories that you have to share are going to be totally different than anybody else's, for sure. Yeah. I've only been to Disney 4 times, I think.
Oh, we got to get you back, Kim. Have you been as an adult, like in recent years?
I actually had my 49th birthday at Disney.
Nice.
So that was not last year. Last year we went to Universal. The year before that we went to Disney. And last year Universal was in August, and I will not go back to Florida in August.
Well, if you listen to the podcast I put out today, because we talk about that, it's doable if you have the right plan, but it is prime meltdown season for kids, but mostly adults, because we're hot and cranky and, there's a lot of walking. Universal is actually one of my favorite places as well. I just got to do a VIP experience there in April, and it was amazing. But yeah, these places are magical. It allows us to escape a little from the real world and go play. And that's what I love about them. So when you're ready, I'm here.
Love it. We did do a really magical thing when we were in Disney, although Disney's always magical, right? But we did Savor the Savannah. Have you ever done that? Oh,
yes.
So nice.
I will say I have not personally done that. I've had clients do it. I've had agents do it, but I eat like a 4-year-old. So I am not adventurous when it comes to food. So I would end up wasting that entire experience. But people rave about it. And I've seen gorgeous pictures of the food, and it looks incredible.
Yeah. Actually, you don't even have to eat while you're there. It's just the idea that you are basically right in the middle of all of the animals in the park. Mm-hmm. And they're so close, obviously not the lions, but
right.
The good ones, the ones that won't eat you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like a personalized trip. to
Yeah.
out into the savannah. And it was really amazing. I loved it too. All right. And my last question today, I want to know, do you use AI in your podcast with creating an outline or show notes or anything like that?
I do use it to create an outline at times, but I don't do a script or anything. I basically put together bullet points. I have raging ADHD, so I like to have some sort of a reminder of the topic that I'm going into today. So like for today's episode that I recorded about beating the heat in the theme parks, I had a bullet point that said cooling towels, bringing in snacks that are cold, and a backpack, so that I remember to talk about those things. But I don't like AI a whole lot. I have concerns about it. And I also feel like what I'm trying to do is a creative thing where I'm sharing my thoughts and opinions, not Gemini's or Claude or whoever, right? So I definitely keep it just to the outline, if at all. Sometimes I just write the topic down with a question and riff, but so it depends. But that's kind of my toe dipping into the world of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just like to know, occasionally, especially with other podcasters, what are they doing with AI, if they're doing anything. So
Yeah.
now, if somebody was to start listening to Talk Travel to Me, do you have a specific episode you would like them to start on?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think I have we're 13 episodes in now with the new format. And I've done a lot of bouncing between general travel, like how to survive in an airport. And that's probably the one I would say, because I think the world needs to know about behavior that's acceptable in an airport and things that are not. So I would say if you're just happening on the scene and you're probably going to end up in an airport at some point, my thoughts are pretty strong about that. But how we behave in public, especially in a setting like that, that episode's probably a good one to pick.
I love it. I love it. I will get the link to that and put the naked link in the show notes so people can go and listen to that. I think that's probably really important as well. I usually stick to myself in the airport, literally, like find a plug for my phone and just sit there and listen to a book and play a stupid game on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I go back and forth. I'm not an extrovert, so I'm not someone that's walking around the airport and like making friends by any means, but I've actually met clients, like new clients in the airport, because they'll see me working. People can't help but look over at you to see what you're working on. And they're like, wait, what are you doing over there? So I'll talk to those people. I'll talk to like friendly looking people, but I'm just always a observer of people. And so I notice things about how people are interacting and behaving and that sort of thing. So I don't do a lot of topics on that, but I felt like that one was really necessary because, we don't take our shoes off in the airport.
No.
And we don't berate the TSA workers. Like there's some things that come up.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite snack you have to bring on the airplane every time you go?
I really like a iced tea lemonade from Starbucks. I live near Manchester, New Hampshire, so that's the airport I fly out of most often. And they have a great little Starbucks right near the gate. Grab it, mobile order it, and then I'm ready to go. It also depends on the time of day, though. I do tend to pick early morning flights because they don't get canceled nearly as often.
Yep.
And I can spend more time in my destination than traveling to it. So sometimes Starbucks is not open, but,
True. I can't travel on an airplane without combos. It's the only time I eat them.
That I don't know if I've ever had a combo. I've seen them.
Time. Yeah.
That's funny. You save it just for that.
Yep.
I love that.
My sister travels with me often. She knows, so she'll buy a bag of combos, or my husband obviously travels with me. And yep, it's always, honey, did you get your combos yet? Oh no, not yet. Got to go to CVS and get my combos.
Oh my gosh. I love that, Kim.
So, all right, Kristy, thank you so much for being on today. Again, just to remind everybody, Kristy's podcast name is Talk Travel to Me, and I'm going to put the airport etiquette episode in the show notes. And congratulations again on changing up the format and making it so much easier for your listener to just call you and make that booking, because that's a win. So congrats.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. And ladies and gents, this is Kim Parkinson with Podcasting for Your Spiritual Business. And remember, where your voice flows, your business grows, as been proven today. Until next time, see you soon. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me today. If you're ready to deepen your visibility and grow your podcast in a way that feels aligned, come join my email list at kpcreativemedia.com/newsletter, where I share exclusive guidance, support, and next steps. And if this episode resonated, I'd be so honored if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the most powerful ways to support the show and help other spiritual women discover it. Until next time, keep showing up and sharing your voice.